name's Bridget Hayden. I'm a junior here, accounting major, dance minor. I'm also on the golf team. This is my second year planning the committee and my third year attending the conference. We're really excited that you can join us today. And this is
I'm Sydney. I'm also a junior. I'm a Russian and econ major. I have been planning this conference for 2 years now, second time attending. And we're just super excited to have you all here and be back in person again for these kind of conferences.
Yes, so we have 3 panelists with us today. First, Sarah Connors. She graduated from Holy Cross in 2004 with a degree in English and went on to get her MBA and is now the head of corporate communications and patient advocacy.
And then we have Jules Biolsi, who graduated from Holy Cross in 2012 with a degree in psychology. She is now co-head of U.S. Equity Business Development, head of Privates Business Development at, I might butcher this.
Balyasny.
Balyasny, there you go. Asset management.
And then lastly, we have Christie Cannone, who graduated from Holy Cross in 2014 with a math degree. She started in global merchandising in the fashion world and has now moved on to brand management and food and beverage services. So we would like to turn the floor over to our speakers. We have a nice PowerPoint presented for you all today where they're just going to talk about connecting their major to what they do now. So.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I think I'm up first, and let's see if I can figure out technology here.
If not, I can.
Okay, unless I'm hitting the wrong button, which is very possible. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I'm going too far. Okay. So Christie Cannone, I was a math major. And just to kind of take a step back and talk about what brought me to Holy Cross. I was fortunate enough to have an older brother who was attending the college. He was 2 years older than me and just absolutely loved everything about Holy Cross. And so I had a little bit of FOMO. I was like, what is this whole Holy Cross thing? I need to learn more about it. Came to visit him. And then of course, learned more about the academia and the opportunities that became available as you became a student at Holy Cross. And right then and there, that was like, sign me up, like Holy Cross is the place for me. I did enter undeclared. So I, mentioned my older brother, he was an econ major. My parents were econ majors. I thought I was going to be an econ major. I was like, that's, what everybody does. I'm going to be an econ major. I had always loved math in high school, excuse me. And so, kind of figured, I'll continue the math journey that I've been on in high school, taking AP courses. I'll get my calculus requirement out of the way early on. Took an econ class and took a math class first semester freshman year. Did not like econ and was loved doing my math homework, loved kind of the environment that the math professors had really curated as a part of, the math department, and decided, I'm gonna keep taking a couple more math classes. This feels like it's kind of working out for me. One class led to another, and then I was so far into it that I was like, this feels really right. This is what I'm meant to do, and this is what I'm gonna put a line in the sand and say this is what I'm gonna major in. And so that's really how I kind of fell into math as a part of my my journey through school. I think, we take so many classes as a part of the Holy Cross curriculum that, you're taking a math class 1 minute and then you're flipping to a art history class or a sociology class, and you're really getting those critical thinking skills that I think is really what sets you apart as a Holy Cross student. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that and how that diversified my skill set beyond just analytics. Okay, so how did my major help me find my career? So I kind of broke it into 3 buckets. First and foremost, math is everywhere. I can guarantee you right now, there is not a job that you will have that you will not do math. And so right then and there, I was like, okay, I'm kind of falling into math. This feels like it's really working out for me. What am I going to do with my math degree? Am I going to go be an actuary, which is a very common path for many of the math majors at Holy Cross? Am I going to go into finance? And none of those really struck me as, felt like the right path for me as I was going throughout my Holy Cross journey. I had a love of fashion. I had a love of the creative side. And so then and there, I kind of knew I need to figure out, how do I use both my left and right brain in whatever I do? I can't solely focus on analytics. I can't solely be creative. I need somehow to find that right balance. And so my path really took me to the fashion world. But it was really the critical thinking and the creative problem solving that set me apart as I moved throughout my career and my journey of going into the fashion world and then moving into, we call it CPG, consumer packaged goods. So if you're familiar with that term, that's really, where a lot of the major players are like Kellogg's, Pepsi, Coke, food and beverage. And so it's a massive industry, but a lot of MBA grads that, really make their way from, a job right out of undergrad, they go to business school and then transition into brand management. And I really feel so strongly that my education at Holy Cross is what enabled me to stand apart from some of those MBA graduates and to really break into the brand management space, along with networking and connections that really, helped to formulate some relationships that gave, amazing mentoring and advice throughout my career. So just to talk a little bit more kind of in depth as to where I am today. So started again at Coach. I've kind of done 3 years at every company. So it worked really nicely with this slide, but lived in New York for about 3 years. And then I'm actually from the Boston area and had actually met a Holy Cross alum who was at Keurig. At the time, it was Keurig Green Mountain. And, a role had opened up at Keurig, and I interviewed for it and, moved back up to Boston and have been in CPG in Boston since. I have since moved to Ocean Spray Cranberries, which is where I've been for the last 3 years. So, as a part of brand management, just to talk for a couple minutes of what is that, brand management is really, having full ownership over the brand, the product portfolio, the financials, the P&L. I'm not necessarily the one, running the financials, but have to know all of the levers that are being pushed and pulled to make sure that we meet our financial commitments to the organization. But also the fun part too, which is the more traditional marketing and advertising. So, being in creative meetings with different agencies, thinking through, how do I get a message that I really want to tell to the consumer target that you're going after, that the brand has identified as being the right area of opportunity. And how do I do that in a really effective way that, you see a commercial and you immediately know what the message that you're trying to convey is. You see an ad on Instagram, you see, an ad on the radio, that it's really all about those communication skills that are coming through. And it starts at the brand manager briefing an agency. And so there's a couple different, layers that message needs to make sure it's clearly communicated all the way to the consumer. And, if the consumer is buying your product, you've done your job right. And so that's really what I love most about brand management, and making sure, I'm effectively communicating a message that resonates, with the right audience. Making sure I'm checking off all my points here. Again, passion for developing people. I have a team of, I manage one person right now, but, we heard Erin talk about it this morning, just really, having that ability to influence other folks who, have also, paying it back to the people who helped pave the way for me. So I'm excited to be here and excited to hand it over to the pennies.
Thank you. Right. So I'm Sarah Connors, as I mentioned. I graduated in 2004, so it's been some time. But I guess to get started, why did I choose an English major? Well, really just because I loved English. And so I don't think I was thinking at the outset, how practical is an English degree, but I have some good news in the sense of, I feel like much like, yes, you do use math in pretty much every job. I think similarly, you use English and your ability to communicate and your ability to write well. Particularly I had, in high school, I had written for my school newspaper. And then when I came here, and I don't know if they call it the Crusader anymore, but I wrote for the Crusader. And it was just where my passion was. So I basically decided, you know what, I'm going to try to kind of enjoy what I'm doing, excel in what I'm doing. I'm getting a liberal arts education. So no matter what, you're getting exposure and skills across pretty much everything. And I think that is really one of the most fantastic parts about a Holy Cross education. So, from there, I had an opportunity. I studied abroad. I actually was like, maybe I'll go into academia. I went to Oxford for a year, studied William Wordsworth, famous poet. So again, practical application in terms of the business world, not really, but nonetheless, enjoyed it tremendously. And I think I learned a lot of other skills while I was there. How to, write a thesis, how to, defend an opinion. Those things are tremendously important when you get into the business world. And so as I have up here, though, I will tell you, there were a lot of folks like, what are you going to do? My father was in finance, and I think a lot of times an English degree can feel less linear. It's perhaps less obvious. So what did I do? See, there we go. So I have kind of a little. I will be honest, I am a big fan of Waze in my navigation system. I don't have a very good sense of direction, so maybe I'm playing on that theme a little bit here. But right out of college, to be honest with you, and I don't know if this is the case anymore, but TJX came on campus, they recruited heavily, and I was just so impressed with the people I met there, and for good reason. Great company. At the time, they had like a 6-week training program. I thought, wow, that they're going to invest in me. So I took the job when I was offered it, and I have no regrets about that. But I will say, for me, fashion merchandising wasn't the right fit. And I think perhaps in part because you start off as an allocation analyst, it's definitely perhaps the less glamorous part of the job. But in many ways, even as I was looking around, I was like, something just doesn't feel right. And I wasn't using some of the skills that I felt I wanted to. So I unabashedly reached out to my network, and I'm in my Holy Cross network. I emailed people, I called people, I worked through a number of different avenues. And I don't know if this is the case anymore, but I was like, I have to stay in this job for a year. So pretty much on the year mark, I flipped the page and went to work for a PR agency. Working in healthcare and tech. So 5 clients, very small, very exciting. And when you think of PR, it really is a lot of getting the message down, interviewing, learning from your clients, understanding their business, and thinking about how to package the information that's compelling and accurate in a number of both written materials and media interviews and all of that. So it was a great fit for me. And I will say I knew pretty quickly I loved it. So I did that for a period of time. Oh, I think there we go. We're back. So I think I pretty quickly realized that was a good fit. Not atypical in this line of work. I had an opportunity to go work in-house. So that basically means at a company rather than at an agency. And I went to work at Genzyme, which is no more, but at the time was a rare disease company that was definitely making a lot of great moves in Boston. And I knew I loved the healthcare side of things. I always liked science, even if I wasn't majoring in science. So it was a good way to marry the two interests. And honestly, since then, and I do feel old in saying this, but I spent more than really 20 years all in healthcare communications. I've done product marketing. I've done a variety of different things, but all of them have definitely leveraged my ability to write, my ability to speak. And I think also the ability to kind of synthesize a message and make a case and tell a story. So currently, I started there. I worked in some global roles, and then I had an opportunity to kind of go to progressively smaller pharma companies. And the reason being is that I feel like I can, in my line of work, at least for now, make more of a difference in sort of smaller to mid-sized companies. So I work for an oncology company now. We have about 500 employees. We are based in the Boston area. We have a marketed product for multiple myeloma, and we have a really exciting pipeline of drugs. And I lead corporate communications and patient advocacy. And I have a small team. And like I said, it's been a really good fit for me. So there we are. But I also wanted to touch on, as much as certainly, I have you know, my career and certainly do put, not surprisingly, a lot of time and energy and effort into my day job. I also, it's important to me to feel that I'm well-rounded as a person, just like I wanted to be well-rounded as a student. So I have sat on a number of boards over the years. I was heavily involved in March of Dimes, which was important to me because my son was born premature, one of them. But also now I'm on a board called Women's Money Matters, which to me really resonates. It's trying to give women, you know, an opportunity for those who are, you know, coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds, giving more opportunity. And then last but not least, I'd be remiss not to put my family up there because I am a proud soccer mom and it has actually helped shape my path. I think I mentioned I spent some time, you know, reporting into Paris. It was very glamorous, very exciting to have international jobs. But I've made the decision to work in a, you know, a US role. And that US role enables me to spend more time with those two cute kids. And for this stage of my life, I think that's working really nicely. So with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm Jules Biolsi. I'm graduated from the class of 2012. I was a psychology major, and I guess I forgot to mention, but I was also women's and gender studies, kind of by accident, but added it on at the end. But what really brought me to Holy Cross, I would say, was probably a little bit unconventional. I grew up right outside of the city. Before I knew where I wanted to go to school, I played sports pretty competitively all season. So it was really difficult to go look at schools with my parents all the time. But our high school offered this opportunity where we went with I went to an all girls Catholic high school. We went with our all boys kind of counterpart school, and we saw 40 colleges in a week. It was like a crash course. Go look. And I remember my parents, we went through the whole list. It was kind of up to Boston, you know, to DC, and we saw everything you could possibly imagine. It was a blur. But I remember my parents were like, pay attention at Holy Cross. It's an amazing school. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to go like hang with the guys and be so fun. But anyway, at the end of the trip, what was glaring was it was one of the only schools that really did leave a mark on my memory. And so I came back and I was like, I definitely want to apply there. And obviously a handful of others. All the other schools had undergraduate business programs. So I had an inkling that I wanted to go into the field of business right out of the gate, but I didn't know what I wanted to study at all, let alone where I was going to go to school. But I ended up deciding to do early decision to Holy Cross after I came from my interview. And I still to this day say it was the best decision I ever made. So it was definitely a risk at the time. I think even my dad at the time was like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, you know, Villanova has an amazing business school and you could already be, you know, set up out of the gate, or, you know, all these other schools had these dedicated majors, but I was courageous and kind of went against the grain, ended up here. I thought for sure I was going to be econ or accounting, similar to Christie. Got my first C+ ever freshman year, first semester in econ. So I knew that was not going to work. And then I decided, you know, we're only here for 4 years. Why not take classes that you like, that are interesting? And then my approach was I'll complement it with experiences to kind of get me where I wanted to be, at least where I thought I wanted to be. I helped plan the Women in Business Conference when I was here every year after my freshman year. So I tried to get exposure and meet a lot of people. A people person. I can talk to a wall, I swear. Like I try and find ways to connect with people. So I knew that was kind of the direction I wanted to go in, but really had to figure out kind of what my lane was going to be. But when I decided to study psychology, honest to God, I had to give my parents a PowerPoint presentation on why. They were like, what are you going to do with that? Are you sure? We're paying a lot of money. Where do you go to Holy Cross? Like, what the hell are you going to do? We still talk about that because I think when I got married last year, my dad mentioned it in his toast. Like, remember the time you gave me a PowerPoint presentation to convince me why? And then now looking back, it was, again, I think I enjoyed every class I took here. And I'm a big believer of that, you know, your major doesn't necessarily like define who you are. I think it's the direction you go in, what you're passionate about, and you'll be way more successful if it's doing something that you love and you enjoy with good people. So that's kind of how I settled on psychology and how I found myself to Holy Cross. When I got here, I think I spent a lot of time with Amy and Pam in the career office. I was overeager, I would say, probably as a freshman, just really trying to get my footing. Had my resume done like a month into Holy Cross, million activities, probably overextended myself on the social front with activities too. And but I wanted to try and get my foot in the door at one of the big banks. Fortunately, I wasn't an econ major. I didn't have a 4.0 here either. The classes are really hard, as we all know. So I went the unconventional route and I applied to non-bulge bracket banks, bulge brackets like the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgans, the Citigroups, many that we all know. But I ended up going to, I would probably say a tier 2 firm was where I had my bigger internship at a firm called Macquarie. It's a big Australian bank. I got the internship. It was a very rigorous interview process, super intense, everything, all the stereotypes you can think of, just brain teasers, math questions, 3-on-1, interview experience. So a lot of preparation. It was daunting. I didn't think I was going to get the job, got it somehow. And then once you get there, I was a fish out of water. I was the only, we had an analyst class of, I think, 70 interns. I was one of 3 women. I didn't go to an Ivy League school and I was an undergrad business major. So you would guess basically all the cards are stacked against me. I was almost like, do I even belong in this room, right? Like everyone's in suits, black and white suits. And when you got there though, you stepped in and I was like, wow, I could thrive here. Like I'm the one that can work the room and had social skills and high EQ to really mingle and get to know the senior management team. And I did all the little things right. I was the first one in at 6 a.m. every day. I was the last one out at 6 p.m. every night. Kind of just always went the extra mile to really make a name for myself. But I'm a big believer. Once you get the job, just own it. You have to be confident. I instill that upon my team now. Half the battle is fake it till you make it. I'm a big believer in that too. So I feel like in my field, which is certainly, Erin talked about it too in her speech this morning, still very male dominated. We're making, ways, we're trying to. Once you get there, you have to just kind of put your best foot forward. So I did a lot of preparation in addition to what I learned at Holy Cross, I think, to help me get where I am today. And then, where I am today, if you asked me when I was at Holy Cross what a hedge fund was, I really didn't know. I probably would Google it and look it up in Investopedia. But, after my 3.5 years at Macquarie, I found myself in a sales role. I wanted to be interacting with clients. I wanted to be out there building relationships. Balyasny Asset Management, we go by BAM, was a client of ours. Got to know them really well. And a couple of the analysts actually referred me in for a role there. So I work on the business development team. I've been at our firm since 2015. It's been a really exciting growth trajectory for our firm. So what do? We have about $17 billion that we manage. When I joined in 2015, we were only $4 billion. So we've grown 4 times, which has been pretty exciting to be on the forefront of. I run the team now that works on our equity business. So that's stocks. So if you guys are saving money or if your parents saved money for you to go to Holy Cross, they probably had to invest it. That's what we do, but on a much bigger scale. And so I co-head that. I have a team of 6 people that work for me now. I think that's the most fun part of my job, really just helping develop and grow emerging talent. And then something I'm just really proud of, this just came out like last week, but I was actually named to this list for this year for the 50 leading women in hedge funds. So it's a global report. So there's people on there from all over the world. I was nominated. I didn't know I was going to get it, but I think I was probably the youngest person on the list too, which is awesome. I'm pretty proud of. But in my role today, I'm building out our businesses. So it's really a lot of psychology. I feel like I'm making, first impressions all the time, evaluating talent, interviewing people all of the time. And so I never would have thought that I use psychology so much more in my day-to-day now than I, would have initially imagined if I, went the econ route or the accounting route. So, so that's a little bit about me. I live in the city. I've been in the New York City for, 10 years since I graduated. So that's kind of my story.
Perfect. So now we just want to open up the floor if you guys have any questions for them or want any advice from them, whatever. Yeah, they're here to answer your questions and help you out.
Hi, my name is Debbie. I am a sophomore. So I came into Holy Cross, neuroscience major. It was going to medical school, not happening. And now I'm kind of like seeing myself, trying to figure out what I'm going to do after college. I do like, I feel like I resonate with Jules. I do a lot of like independent research, preparation because I like playing ahead.
Yeah.
Getting 10 years of my life planned right now. So when I'm like looking at like jobs and internships, I think the roles that I say like management and like business and operations usually align more with me. So that's sort of kind of why I'm at this conference today. So I think a problem that I'm facing right now is trying to market my neuroscience majors to people. Or like I love my neuroscience major. I want to continue learning in it, but I don't want to go to medical school. The problem is how do people in business and finance take me seriously as a neuroscience major? So that's kind of like my challenge right now.
I can add a couple 2 cents. I mean, it's so impressive. I wouldn't even be caught. Can't take that class, I promise you. So I would kind of spin it in a way that, similar to, I would say, to how I was articulating my experience, but your classes are super challenging. You're learning a lot about a lot of different topics, and you can apply the critical thinking, or if you're using Excel a lot or any of your research, process to any field, right? Like you could be a healthcare analyst at an investment management firm because you're going to know the science really well, right? Like, or, at a company like yours, maybe even, right? I was going to say.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, certainly pharmaceuticals and healthcare, there's so many opportunities, and a big majority of it actually is on the business side, right?
Yeah.
So, that would be highly marketable, I think, in the pharma world. And I work with a ton of folks who, even some of whom went to medical school and then went off to try, to be a doctor, and they didn't like it, or maybe they did like it, but they wanted to parlay those skills into something else. I think that would be absolutely, fantastic in that realm. So definitely, I think it's all about the transferable skills, right? Of which I'm sure you have many, and it is certainly an impressive major. So I think people would certainly know that you had a lot of aptitude, and I think that's a lot of it. And the other piece too could be, for me, I was an English major, but then when I started to do more work with investor relations and kind of more of the financial side, I did go back and get my MBA. So there's always down the line, is if you choose to specialize, you can, add on another degree if you so choose.
Yeah, and I think the one other thing to add is just think about kind of, what are the skills that I use as I approach my major as well. So not necessarily like the fundamental, what the material is, but the thinking that you do to kind of, answer a question holistically and get you from point A to point B. Those are the type of skills that a hiring manager is going to love to hear. And it's really just all about how you tell the story and weave the thread throughout.
Thank you so much.
I have a quick question. I'm Ellen. I'm a sophomore as well, and I'm also an English major. So Sarah, I was really resonating with what you were saying. But even though I still have a little bit of time before graduation, I've had a lot of people ask me, what are you going to do with an English major, when I tell them that I want to go into business? So what's something that you found that really helped you when you were leaving Holy Cross or getting ready to leave Holy Cross that kind of helped make that transition a little easier and kind of market your major, like Bridget and Sydney were saying, was something that is not necessarily econ or accounting?
Sure. Yeah, I agree. It's not as linear, right? So people just require a little more handholding to help them understand. But, I think it's really, actually, I liked your slide when you were talking about kind of the way you think and the way you approach. And first of all, you have a liberal arts education, right? And I think you can lean into that. Look, during my time at Holy Cross, I was exposed to lots of, different experiences and subjects. And, at the same time, I think the ability to think and the ability to kind of you know, to write well is will serve you well in really, I'd say almost any opportunity. And as you kind of progress in your career, I know so many people who don't seem like they would fit. You know, you were saying like psychology, like it's like, wow, that does make sense. You utilize that. But I would kind of lean into, you know, that, you know, really every job, the ability to write well and articulate your thoughts is really critical. And then I would just try to, which it sounds like you're already doing, you know, I'm sure you were like involved in a variety of different things. And so you're telling a kind of a full story, you know, about yourself and about your experiences. And don't sell yourself short. I think the key thing is there's no apologies for being an English major. Like it's a fantastic major. So I think it's just about kind of bringing the confidence when you talk about what you bring to the table.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I feel like I feel like the professional world now it's all so much email. I feel like we get like hundreds of emails
my
a day.
God.
So honestly, writing concisely and like
Too
good
many.
English, I'm like, can't tell you how many emails I get. I'm like, you sent that? Like, did you reread that? Like, there's spell check. Like, how did you misspell it? And there's spell check. Like, so I feel like you can't go wrong. English is really a great path. What year are you guys? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Diana. I'm a junior econ major. So I have a question for you, Jules. So how did you prepare for your investment banking role?
Gosh, you have to, there's so many resources out there, I think now, that I think the banks have all been like exposed with some of their tricks, but yeah, I studied a lot. I like literally practiced mental math beforehand. It sounds crazy, but you want to prepare for as much as you can to not be caught off guard. I think I was even caught off guard, even though I prepared a lot, but yeah, I definitely did that. I really read through a lot of different like brain teasers beforehand. I was only asked one, and I don't think it's not even about if you get it right. It's just like how you talk through your thought process. Like, I don't even think it was possible. They asked me how many ties were sold, men's ties were sold in New York City over a certain amount of time. So I was like, okay, how many it was like, what other information do you want to know? We like talked through it together. And so I think I just read a lot of different, you know, what other brain teasers have been used before. I really read a lot about markets. I was following, you know, Yahoo Finance and CNBC the whole couple of weeks leading up to each interview. I tried to really study up on the person that was interviewing me. It's a little bit creepy, but LinkedIn is a really powerful resource. And so you being able to really find something that you can relate to or connect with your interviewer on, I think is really important. I never find it weird when someone will say like, oh, I saw you went to Holy Cross. Like, that to me is a positive. They went like a little bit extra, you know, that's memorable, you know, like that stood out. And I think just remember, they're interviewing a lot of people. They already have your resume. So when you are interviewing with someone, your goal should be, how can I get them to know me better? That's not on the paper I already sent in, right? They know you went to Holy Cross. They know that you're an econ major, but why are you an econ major? Or what drives you? Or where are you from? What was your first job? Or, you know, whatever it may be. This was a true story. I was a camp counselor in high school, and my first paycheck, I bought shares of Disney. Didn't know anything about the company, but I was just like fascinated by the idea of like, I could double my money. Maybe I could also lose it all, but you know, I always talked about that in interviews, and like, who knows if that resonated, but that showed my interest from a very young age and, you know, what I was applying for. So those were a couple of things I would say. But
I love that. Maybe I'll build on it because I think you're right. You know, I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of people over the years, and, you know, just getting in the door, you're already probably qualified, right? So the resume has been read, and then it really is what sets you apart. And so I completely agree with preparation. I'm always shocked to find out that sometimes people are sitting across from you and it's like, do you know what drugs our company has on the market? Do you know what's in our pipeline? And sometimes they don't. And these are really impressive people on, you know, but they haven't done the research. And and like you said, I mean, it's not creepy. Like, I actually like to see LinkedIn Premium. So like have the people who are, you know, actually, you know, coming to interview with me, have they looked me up? Like it should be a yes. And it doesn't mean that they need to be like, you know every little thing, but they should have a general understanding of maybe why I got to where I got to. And that I think builds a sense of camaraderie. The other thing that I'm very big on, maybe it's the English major part of me, is a simple thank you note. It doesn't need to be, 10 pages long. In fact, it shouldn't be, but I mean, in my mind, but I think just something that is personalized to the conversation. So I really enjoyed talking to you about X. I would be really excited to work at insert company name for Y. I think that really is a differentiator. I will say I've gone through a couple rounds of interviews. I recently filled 2 positions, and only 2 of the people sent thank you notes. And again, it's not that would be, if someone was miserable in the interview, no, of course that's not going to get them over the finish line. But if I was tight between 2 candidates, that's probably going to push someone ahead. Because it shows that they cared enough when they walked out of the room. And it also shows me they'll have follow through. I'm in a very kind of even though I'm not in client service, I think of my role as kind of a client service type of role. So how will they interact when they're here? When they have the job and they're less motivated, so that's a factor.
Yeah, and I think just to build on what both Jules and Sarah have said, the preparation piece and really, understanding what does the company do that you're going and the position specifically that you're applying for. And a lot of times, it's well, I actually don't know anything about this. It's reaching out to folks in the Holy Cross Alumni Network. And then also thinking through, okay, I might get asked questions X, Y, and Z. What examples can I pull through? You may not have, a breadth of work experience, right, to pull from, but you have amazing academic and extracurricular experience to use that. And that's really going to go quite a long way in terms of showing that you've thought through what can I bring to the table here in this role, and how can I, continue to build upon the experiences that I've already pushed myself to get thus far.
Caroline, what's your major?
I'm actually psychology major.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I just declared it very recently. So yeah.
Congrats. Just picked on you because I can read your name.
What are some of the either skills or competencies or habits that you can attribute to Holy Cross that have been kind of your superpower, your differentiator throughout your careers?
I can go first. I would say agility and flexibility. In an ever-changing business environment, even as we look back in the last 12 months, economics have shifted. I am in a position today where it's really relying on the supply chain as well. Those dynamics are continuing to shift and will continue to shift. And I think the one thing, I mentioned briefly in the intros is, really being able to shift your focus from one thing to another and doing it really quickly and seamlessly. And I think the examples that I would pull from Holy Cross is, I mentioned you're in a math class, at 8 a.m. and then you have to quickly get to a history class. Those are 2 very different skills. And as I think about my day-to-day, today, I'm in a meeting with finance 1 minute, and then a meeting with a creative agency in the next half hour. And so it's really being able to pivot and shift, know what's going on in the world around you, which of course we are so encouraged to do at Holy Cross, and really understanding the global impact of, the economy, politics, and that it truly does have an effect on your day-to-day and being able to kind of manage, the impact that you do make to your organization.
I agree with everything you said. And I guess just building on that as well, I think something I liked about Holy Cross is there are small classes, and I think you're very accountable here, right? So if you get called on, the expectation is you've done the work, you've read the paper, you've done, whatever preparation was required. And I think that's kind of how the business world is, right? You'll get called on and you may not expect it, but if you're prepared and, you show up ready and kind of willing to learn here, I think having that same attitude, I think one of the things that's fueled my career is really just an excitement to learn and taking opportunities that I thought would grow me, not always, of course, you're always hoping to kind of continue to climb the ladder, but, I've taken some lateral moves such that I could learn new things or, and I think ultimately that does propel you forward, right? The other thing I would touch on that I just loved about Holy Cross and I think is central to at least what I try to carry with me is the men and women for others, Right. So I was very involved in volunteer work here, and I continue to volunteer in different capacities as I get older. But I think you have to bring passion to what you do. You know, the days can be really long if you're in a job that you don't like. So, and I think in the course of a career, like, you know, I've had a few that haven't been my favorite, but, you know, it's like, how do you then find something that you enjoy? And it doesn't mean that it's going to be, you know, all sunshine and rainbows, but overall, like, do you have passion for what you do? I love working in healthcare. You know, the pharma industry is not perfect, but overall, we are striving to bring forward new medicines to help very sick people. I work in oncology. I lead patient advocacy. I work with patients all the time. And I do feel like, even though I'm on the business side, something that I'm doing is helping contribute, right? And so I think finding something you're passionate about is also really, really important.
I know, gosh, you guys took some of mine. I think hard work, number one, would be one thing. And then I think also just the idea that since we get to take so many different classes, you know a little bit about everything. And so I find like I can connect with people, you know, from my one art history class I took to like check that requirement box. Like I can still like talk about, you know, someone on my team was going to Turkey and I was like, oh, the Hagia Sophia, like, do you know about it? And I learned about that in my art history class, like just random things like that, that I think, you know, we, in my job, especially like almost actually every role, I would say, you have to know what's going on in the world, right? What's going on, what's changing every day. And I find I use that a lot. And then the first one was the work hard. I can't impress upon that enough. I remember when I came to Holy Cross and my friends at other schools were like, you're only taking 4 classes? That must be so easy. I'm like, they're taking like 5 or 6. I'm like, no. Like this is really a totally another ball game. And so I feel like just the hours of studying and preparation or, you know, for presentations, like I think I'm not just saying this, but I think my boss has said I'm like one of the hardest workers she's ever had on her team. And I really think that I would say stems back from my time here, like putting in the reps, going to the office hours to fix that problem set, or just doing a lot of that extra, you know, reading or work, I think really sets me apart, or well, personally,
What's your guys' favorite thing at Holy Cross? Like biggest thing you say you miss?
I think just being so close to your friends. I think that was the biggest adjustment when you graduate. You know, I remember right after we graduation, we went back and we're like, wow, this is the last time all of us will be a hallway away from each other, right? And then now fast forward, you know, we couldn't go to our 10-year reunion this year, but, you know, facilitating a weekend that all 12 of my best friends from Holy Cross could get together is like nearly impossible. So I think, you know, don't take for granted the proximity and that like really close quarters. Obviously still some of my best friends are from Holy Cross. So I think that's one thing that I love the most and I miss the most.
I can't really build on that. I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's a very special time where you have sort of your own community built right around you. And of course, it comes with its own set of challenges, but I will say I made some of my very best friends here and we continue to see each other, which is really special. Although, of course, it's not quite the same naturally, right? And it takes a lot more coordination to pick a date and make it happen.
We just picked a date for next year already.
That's the way to do
it.
Yeah.
Next summer.
Lots of planning.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, I think in addition, obviously, to the people, is just the ability to, like, your job is to learn, and like, how cool is that? Like, fully take advantage of that, like, go to office hours, like, if you think about it as like, this is what I'm here to do, like, it just totally like soak up as much as you can from your peers and the faculty, and the amazing people that you're surrounded by, because it's really a special place.
Very well said, Christie.
And then just like a final thing, what would be like a piece of advice from each of you that you would give to us as students currently right now, like moving forward?
You got it. Okay, I would say resilience. So I would say, you know, basically knowing that, you know, if you put in the work and you kind of bring the right attitude, that you will accomplish what you're hoping to accomplish. And it might look a little bit different than what you think you're hoping for, but that's okay. But I think being resilient and knowing that there will be some setbacks along the way, but that's okay. And as best as you can, you know, it's like, if you don't get that one job that you were hoping for, that's okay. Maybe that other job is preparing you in a way that you can't even imagine what next success it will set you up for. So I think being open and resilient, those are some of the qualities I would just urge you to try to carry along with you as you go.
I think for me, it would be authenticity. So, everybody has a different path. Everyone has a different journey. Listen to, your gut, listen to what you're really passionate about, major in what you're going to be, really fulfilled in your 4 years at Holy Cross, and then kind of see where that leads you, obviously with the right preparation and the right thought, but really embrace what makes you different and what's going to, drive your unique path forward. Because like, how amazing is it 10 years later to get back together with, your group of friends, and everybody is all over the place, different careers, different journeys, and it's just amazing to see, how far everybody goes.
Really thinking. I would say take advantage of everything you have access to at Holy Cross. I mean, things like this are really unprecedented opportunities to network, learn a little bit more. Hopefully we pushed your brain to think, a little bit more about what you're going to study or what you're going to do. But I think go to everything, show up to everything. And this is so cliche, but like, I'm so jealous of, you all here. Like I would do anything to go back. I mean, yes, I love my job and my professional life is great, but the 4 years here really are incredible. And so I just would say if you're really tired, still show up to the, teach-in or the class even sometimes, right? But I would just say really take advantage of everything that you have here.
Oh, thank you. Does anyone have any other final questions? Well, thank you for our panelists joining us today.